mass of people can't deal with it.
We are in process of developing a whole series of techniques to get people actually to love their servitude.
We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
To change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people to bring about one world socialist totalitarian government.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time.
If you can get people to consent to the state of affairs in which they are living, then you have a much more easily controllable society than you would if you were relying wholly on clubs and firing squads and concentration camps.
Tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, prejudices.
As you connect the dots between different people, organizations, religions, history, suddenly the picture starts to form.
The kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men.
Someone born in the United States is not more special than someone born in Mexico. They're just vehicles for the consciousness to experience.
They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much.
It was learned that the aliens had been and were then manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion.
They reach into our children. Music, television, books.
Prey on children's innocence.
How can I disprove lies that are stamped with an official seal?
So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it feels like an altar to an alien god.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc is now in the possession of the Army.
Too many others know what's happening out there, and no one, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for Mankind in the Twilight Zone.
About time some of you got acquainted with the real hard truth.
If you don't connect the dots, it's just a mass of what's all this about.
You are listening to the Secret Teachings Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Gable. tnstradio.info is our website. If you are listening live this Friday, we welcome you to the show. And if you're in the chat room, you are very lucky this Friday because we are going to try tonight to do some call-ins from you and see what you think of tonight's subject, Skunk Doesn't Works, UFO Murders and Fallen Angels. Before we get to that, though, if you would like to contact the show, the majority of the audience, of course, is audio only. You can email us at rdgable, rdgable@yahoo.com. You can also reach out on social media, the few social media sites we use like X and Facebook. The others have been banned or shadow banned. And of course, the website I gave you, tstradio.info, has the archive. It also has all of our books, my new book, Protocols of Goyim, my other books, Occult Arcana and Liberty Shrugged. You can get copies there on the website to support the show. And we are listener-supported Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We do this live video show on top of the audio show every Friday because so many of you have supported us and you've supported the show, me personally, in more than just financial ways. So I try to do this every Friday. I think we've missed maybe one Friday over the last 6 months or maybe more than that. And it's because you've supported us, and this is, with my resources, what I can give back to you at the moment. Thank you so much for being here. Wherever you're listening around the world, go to the chat first, and we'll say hello to Joe Ryder and Patriot Girl, and Chrissy Taylor is here. Hello, Chrissy. By the way, check your messages on X again, Chrissy, because I think I sent you another message last night or the night before last. Chrissy and I are setting up an interesting show on the Weimar Republic of Germany. So welcome to the show, Chrissy. I hope you'll enjoy tonight. Deborah is here. Hermit Ventures is here. I don't know if they're going to stick around. I think they said that they're camping, but if you can get a signal tonight via the internet, this is a great show to listen to while you're out in the woods, assuming you're out in the woods, presumably listening to some late night radio. It's a good show about UFOs tonight. Might not sleep very well in the tent or the camper, but it's a good show, I think, either way. Marilyn Kluger is here. Hello, Maryland. I appreciate you joining us in the chat. Vaping is here. Diane Perry is here from Deer Park, as always. Hello, Diane. Patriot Girl Mojo is here as well. Chris V is here. That's Chris Vellner is here. Mistos Dokos, I think he's always here. Tim Curley is always here. Rita Moore is usually here through Facebook. Hello, Rita. Combat Medic is here as well. Hello, Combat Medic. For those of you listening in the audio-only version of the show, I'm trying to go through all the different names here and reference all the kind listeners in the chat. So I hope this doesn't get boring for the audio-only listeners who miss the live show. But Antonio is here as well. There is no Clyde Lewis tonight. Clyde got a very small, minor, but slightly uncomfortable procedure done today. So he is not joining us tonight, nor did he join us last week. I don't know the day-to-day per se of Clyde, but I know that if he were listening tonight, or if he were here, he would very much appreciate all of the kind words that come from the chat room. Thank you so much for that, and I hope that, just like you, I hope Clyde gets better soon and gets back on air. It's a hell of a time to be off air considering everything that's going on, and considering that Clyde's show, like this show, was one of the few shows who sort of predicted the apocalyptic framing of all of these narratives. So we wish Clyde the best, of course. Amber Gedden is also here. Amber just got a copy of my new book, Protocols of Goyim. I hope that she'll enjoy it down there in my home state of Florida. Mistos Dokos is here. I already said Mistos Dokos. She got 2 shout-outs, Mistos. Flux is here, and I believe Flux is a moderator in the chat room. So is Joe Ryder. Joe and Flux, you're 2 of our moderators in that chat room. I don't think we need you to be a moderator, but just in case. In fact, tonight, you may have to do some moderation in the chat, because what I'm going to do is, against my better judgment, I'm going to, at some point here, after we get through the presentation, I'm going to put the call-in link in the chat room so that you can click it and you can join us on the stream. I would ask you to not have your video on. We'll do audio only, like a phone call, and get your take on the main subject tonight, because frankly, I don't know. I don't really have much of an opinion about this, because I have not kept up with it until I started reading about it extensively last night. And I've not formed an opinion other than what I assume is people that are being disappeared because of their connections to some sort of project. People assume it's alien, or it has something to do with advanced technology that's alien. It could have, it could just be coincidence. I don't think it's that. It could also be selective reporting, because I just saw a story that came out, I believe it was 2 days ago, about a woman who went missing, and she was missing since, I think it was November. Maybe it was sometime mid to late last year. It might have been I think it was maybe the summertime last year she went missing, this other woman. And they're just now reporting on it in 2026. Like, suddenly the disappearance of this girl, her name is Melissa Casillas. Suddenly it's important because other people have gone missing. So the question is it just selective reporting? I don't know. We're going to look at that tonight, and we'll go to the chat, and we'll go to the calls if you would like to call in. So get ready for that chat link when I put it in there. Click on it, and you'll be able to get on the show tonight. King Sweet is here. Hello, King Sweet. And we'll go through the rest of this relatively quickly. Storm is here. Hello, Storm. And I believe that name is Lane. Oh, Lane Utkov. Lane Utkov is here. Hello, Lane. Thank you for joining us in the chat. I know your name. I just, for some reason, my brain's a little dyslexic and I switched the letters around. Hello, Lane. Thank you for joining us tonight on the chat room and on the show. Evan Kelly is here. Hello, Evan. And last but not least, so we don't do this the entire show, we'll go through the rest of these names pretty quickly. HP Burrito is here. Hello, HP. I see Italkin is here. And David Quist is here. If I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Nathaniel is here. And if I missed anybody, I apologize. I just saw Brent, Hal, and Cheryl jump in the chat. If I missed anybody else, I apologize. Thank you for joining us. tstradio.info, rdgable@yahoo.com. Please get a copy of one of my new books. It is a lot of work, and I think that you'll really enjoy it. Yes, Amber, you might think my voice is soothing. I think my voice is annoying. I don't like the sound of my voice. I think that's how most people feel in radio. I know a lot of radio people that think they don't like the sound of their voice. I'm like, no, your voice is great. It also has to do with the microphone. It has to do with the mixing board setup as well. So Skunk Does It Works. Obviously, it's a play on Skunk Works, which is the official pseudonym for Lockheed Martin's advanced development programs. But if people from those programs or people associated or aligned with those programs are turning up dead or missing, be them military personnel or science personnel, then maybe Skunk doesn't work. Maybe Skunk doesn't work. Something's going on that is very mysterious and quite suspicious because of the timing. Now, I was also considering that so many people, like we have a pattern here, who have gone missing or who have been killed going back to 2025 and probably before that if we start digging. I've considered that based on the optics and the framing of UFO stories and the idea after Dan Farr went on Joe Rogan and said that Trump was going to be the disclosure president and disclose UFOs, which doesn't mean alien, which should be obvious by now, but that's still not, I think, understood in the UFO community for the most part. But after that, it became a big story, and I think a lot of it goes back to that Joe Rogan interview and how influential that has been on the culture with Dan Farr. And then now I think you had the president's daughter mention that he was going to reveal something about UFOs. And I'm just talking in generalities here because I've done so many shows on this that I think the audience has a pretty good understanding of the background on it. But whether or not the president says anything official is, to me, pretty irrelevant because as far as I can tell, I don't need the White House to confirm to me that UFOs are real because they are. They're unidentified, they're flying, and they're objects of some sort. Now, whether they're aliens, well, how do you define alien? This is always an important thing to consider when we do a show like this because a lot of people think extraterrestrials and aliens are, well, it depends on, I guess, what religious beliefs you hold. If you're the vice president, well, the vice president was asked about this. This is Newsweek reporting. And the vice president repeated the talking point that he thinks they're demons. J.D. Vance, the man who worked and who was mentored by a literal vampire, like a guy that consumes blood, that would be Peter Thiel, the Antichrist-obsessed technocrat. J.D. Vance was asked recently on a podcast what he thinks of UFOs. And you can see here in this story, he was on the Benny show. I don't particularly like that guy either. I don't listen to any of these people for the record. Benny Johnson, maybe, I think that's Benny Johnson's show. I don't dislike him so much, but there's a lot of these people like Tim Pool, and there's just so many of them that come out of nowhere and suddenly they're popular, and I don't buy it. But you got J.D. Vance, who says he thinks that they're, quote, demons. And this isn't a new idea or a new thing. A lot of people think that they're demons. And if you say that they're demons, then of course, when you have 60+% of the US population who thinks demons are like a literal religious thing, then obviously you're going to get a lot of clicks. Like if I named tonight's show UFO demons, I would have probably gotten far more clicks in the long run than if I labeled it something that I think is pretty clever, like Skunk doesn't works, UFO murders and fallen angels. So J.D. Vance says that they're demons. So it's all up to your personal interpretation. I mean, I don't think they can be demons in the same way. I don't think you can find the halls of Amenti because it's a very complex subject. The halls of Amenti are not a physical place, and demons are not really, physical things or things that manifest physically per se. I mean, the origin of the demon is the voice inside of you, or the daemon, and it's a pretty universal idea in every culture that we all have these spirits inside of us. It's really the conscious and the subconscious and the unconscious, that trinity. It's really your conscience. If like that thing inside of you that tells you this is right, this is wrong. The angel and the devil on your shoulder. It's a universal idea, and that's really what a demon is, or coming from the Greek daemon. So that's why UFOs can't be demons etymologically, because the word has nothing to do with space aliens. It has to do, well, kind of like that Joseph Campbell book, The Inner Reaches of Outer Space. It has to do with the innerness, not the outerness. And that just is the dictionary definition of the word. So it literally cannot be space aliens, because the definition of the word demon, the root of the word demon, has to do with the inner reaches rather than the outer reaches. Now, beyond that, we define demons in a lot of different ways in our culture. So perhaps they are demons in another form, in another capacity. But when the government, who has, we believe, I think we're all in agreement, the government has misled or lied in some form or fashion about UFOs for half a century, 3/4 of a century, close to a century, close to 100 years, openly just denying what is obvious. And then, of course, engaged in, from the 1953 Robinson panel report and recommendations, to Hollywood movies, to the 2017 rebranding of the UFO as the UAP, to now the sort of politicizing of UFOs to the point where it's becoming a joke like virtually every other political issue, like with what's happening in Iran. The Iranians supposedly have nuclear weapons again, even though the White House said last year that anybody who believes that they have weapons after we destroyed their nuclear facilities, which we didn't, but the White House said we did, is pushing and promoting fake news. The White House said that. And then suddenly they've got weapons again. So I guess we let them keep the weapons but destroyed the facilities, or something like this, or they hid the facilities and we told the public that if you don't believe that we won, then you're promoting fake news, but we didn't actually win, so we had to go back to war. It's not a war. I mean, when the government like that lies so blatantly and lies about something that is so potentially cataclysmic, like a global war that maybe involves nuclear weapons or something equivalent, if they're willing to lie about that, why would they tell you the truth about anything? If they're willing to lie about something that's so potentially earth-shattering, why would they tell you the truth about UFOs? Why would they tell you the truth about anything? It doesn't make any sense. And the answer to that is, of course, they wouldn't tell you the truth. And that's probably because a lot of the questions we ask, there might not be solid answers for. So maybe they can't give us the truth. Every time I do a UFO show, I always reference one of my favorite episodes, or it's a 2-part episode of The X-Files, where the commander at Area 51 sabotages the UFO so that Fox Mulder can see it, and it ends up crashing, and he gets the black box and tries to give it to him in they were in Rachel, Nevada, and the commander at Area 51 just ends up asking Fox Mulder, "Are UFOs real?" Like, he doesn't really, like, are aliens real? He doesn't even know, and that's pretty much, I think, what's going on. I don't really think they know. I mean, you got to think about this in a different light. I feel like when you have a presidential administration saying that we need to figure out what is making Americans so sick, and you have a president who is famous for eating McDonald's and drinking soda and not sleeping, like eating the worst possible, quote, food, drinking things that I don't really consider beverages, and not sleeping enough and being very stressed. And like, those are things that are the source of most of our health problems. And if you can't figure that out, I'm going to take a guess that you can't figure the questions that have plagued the human race since the beginning of time, and that is, are we alone? I doubt you're going to be able to figure that out. And if you do figure it out, I think the response that you're going to have, or if you consider it a little bit, the response you're going to have is basically the response that J.D. Vance had. Yeah, they're demons, which is just really it's such a lazy and dismissive response. They're just demons. What a lazy vice president. It's just so cheap. You know, it's just like, it's like dollar store psychology. You know, it's like some kind of like self-help app or something. It's just really cheap. There's not a lot of thought put into it. It's like that Temu company, that Chinese company. It's like Temu ufology. You don't consider any other possible, just they're demons. I don't understand that. We just jump to that conclusion. I don't think JD Vance, frankly, I don't think he could spell the word daemon, let alone, give us a description of what a daemon is. I don't believe it. So if a government is willing to lie, and I'll put this up on the screen for those of you watching, this was what the White House had said about Iran back in June of last year. The White House said Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated and suggestions otherwise are fake news. Well, that's funny because almost a year later, we're back in Iran. And last year, if we said the nuclear stuff wasn't dealt with, it was fake news. But this year, if you say that there's no nuclear stuff, that's also fake news, and you're a Nazi. The same administration who used to be called Nazis now are calling other people Nazis because that word, like UFO, really just has, that acronym has no meaning. Like, define a Nazi. It's a National Socialist. 9 out of 10 people don't even know that. What's a UFO? Unidentified flying object. That doesn't even matter anymore because we've changed the term. It's UAP. If a government is willing to lie about the nuclear facilities in Iran, and someone said to me, well, they could still have a nuclear bomb. We destroyed the facilities. Really? Well, one, they're still targeting these facilities now. So they lied last year, they're lying this year. Or we destroy the facilities and let them keep the bomb. I don't understand how that makes any sense. The point is, if I haven't made this very clear, if a government is willing to lie about this, something that could potentially, in the worst case scenario, where nobody controls anything and everything falls apart, the world collapses into a global theater of war. If they're willing to lie about that, I'm pretty sure they're willing to lie about flying saucers. If they're willing to lie about something so brazen, so blatant, so dangerous, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're willing to lie about UFOs. Now, when I say they, this is a key point. When I say they, I have to ask myself, who do I mean by they? It's not an LGBTQ thing either. It's just a who is they? The White House? Because I'm pretty sure that the White House is probably not in the know. I'm pretty sure that whatever's going on at Skunk Works, whether it's human or alien or both, I highly doubt that the president is well versed on that. The man's almost what? He's almost 80. I'm 35, and I really don't even know how to work my iPhone. I just found out how to change certain settings on it, and it's an iPhone 14, and I just got it, and I'm like, what, 4. I don't know if you count the Pro Maxes, but I'm how many generations behind the new iPhone, and it's 2026. I don't even know how to do a lot of things on my phone. I'm still learning things on my computer. I'm 35. Trump's almost 80. I highly doubt this man knows much of anything but real estate, and apparently he loves nature shows, loves monkeys and sharks. That's really it. I don't think that Trump knows anything about UFOs. And besides, if you were to ask someone in government about anything that they're not interested in and they don't know anything about, what matters more? Their position of authority, where they know nothing about this particular subject. Maybe they can look into it, but they don't really know anything. They don't really have any interest. Or someone who has studied it and researched it for decades and who's essentially an expert on it. I don't think that these people know much of anything in Congress. I don't think the president knows. I mean, they might have briefed him on something. They might have shown him something. Do you think he understands it, though? Now, I mean, if you want to play around with the idea that his uncle had access to the Tesla papers, I've done plenty of shows on the time travel conspiracy, plus Ultra, the Tomorrowland, and Mar-a-Lago. I'm willing to hear these stories because they're fascinating, the adventures of Baron Trump and whatnot. But I just have a hard time believing that people that are willing to lie to us and thrust the world into war and potentially cataclysmic end times scripted narratives, I just don't think that they know much or care much or are really concerned much with UFOs, unless it factors into the end times apocalyptic framing, which is another possibility. Let's go to the chat room real fast here, and then we'll go to some of these stories about these missing or dead scientists and military personnel. I see chat's moving really fast here. I saw, is that Etelkin in the chat room there? It's hard to see this on my screen. Etalkin, Etalkin. When Donald's lips are moving, you know he's lying. I think Etelkin also said John Trump, Donald's uncle, knew. So I'm guessing that's in reference to what I had said about the Tesla papers. He said, I respectfully disagree. So what exactly do you disagree on? Do you disagree on the president knowing about the stuff? Or, I mean, the thing is, I mean, you could brief, example, to take someone who is not in government and take someone just like an average American. Take me, it's an average American. And brief me on how airplane engines work. I'm not an engineer. I don't know. You know, it's like that scene from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where they're trying to print their own money and make their own self-sustaining economy, and they give out the money, and then the people just come in and spend it, and they get all this free beer, and then they got all the patty dollars, and it's like, well, if we just give the money back out, they're going to keep drinking for free. How does this work? He's like, I don't know how a self-sustaining economy works. And then the Dennis says, if I'm being honest, I don't know how the U.S. economy works. Like, I don't think I would understand if you briefed me on how any kind of basic engineering worked. I have a really hard time believing that if there is any kind of briefings, it doesn't go beyond, sir, there's things we can't identify. We don't know what they are. I just have a hard time believing anything goes beyond that. Now, I'm trying to just be objective about this, and I'm trying to be reasonable and rational about this because I don't know. And I'm not saying I don't know because it's easy. I'm saying I don't know because I really don't have any idea. But I've always been a little bit weirded out by the fact that there are lots of UFO researchers. You don't have to trust everything that they write, but you go to Jim Mars or Timothy Good or just people like that, and you don't have to believe everything they write. But when they show, like Timothy Good published a tremendous number of UFO documents in his books, and they're military records, and they're things that just totally obliterate the mainline narratives about UFOs. And maybe those documents are fake, which then you have to ask, why would they present fake documents? Does that go back to the 53 report and how they want to create this illusion of the implication of extraterrestrials? I don't know. It's just that's why the X-Files was so good. Chris Carter was so good at writing these storylines, because ultimately you find out that the people at Area 51, they don't even know if UFOs are real, or they don't know if aliens are real. They don't know where the technology comes from. Who the hell knows? You know? Or the clip of the movie we played earlier this week. What was it? Wag? Is it Wag the dog? With Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro, where they get Dustin Hoffman's character to produce a war. It's a fake war to cover up for a presidential scandal. It's not a real war. It's get him to fake a war. And they're talking about the assassination of Kennedy. And Robert De Niro's character says, we shot that in a what do you say, a set or something. And he said, well, at first he said, I read the first report of the Warren Commission. It said Kennedy died, from a drunk driving accident. But he's like, the truth is, I was there when we shot that shot. We shot it in a scale model in a studio. And Dustin Hoffman's character says, "Is that true?" And Robert De Niro's character says, "How the hell do we know?" I mean, this is the issue. It's just so much material that has been published about this subject, and everybody has their own theories, and you never get any kind of information from any official sources that's consistent or that you could trust. So you never know what's happening. You never know what's going on. I mean, the government, the White House, is not being honest about really simple, basic things. I highly doubt they're going to be honest about something so complex. And I'm suspicious that if there is any kind of government acknowledgement of like, oh, there's probably aliens, I'm pretty sure it's going to be used for very nefarious purposes. Like, quite frankly, I can see this. I can see something happening where we're told that the UFOs are real, of course. I mean, they've already acknowledged this, because you really can't deny this anymore. But UFOs are real, obviously. It doesn't mean they're aliens, but they're real. And the technology, the implication of the technology, it's all real too. So you're told this. But a lot of it has to do with, the Iranians. These are a mixture of demons, and they're probably Muslim demons. So we probably need to shoot these UFOs down, because they're going to crash them into the next World Trade Center. Like, I can see that. I can see people pushing that narrative, like connecting UFOs to something very political and very not religious in the sense of like demons, but very like connecting it to some rival religion. I mean, especially considering there's a lot of really, I think that there's to some extent crazy, but then there's also a little bit of reasonable, assumption here. But a lot of people think that, because we already have this happening, a lot of people think that Judaism is like an alien religion. And I don't necessarily mean ancient aliens, which was an idea created by Mattis Agrest, who was a Torah scholar. I mean, like, they think Jews are aliens. Some people think Chinese are aliens. Some people think all Asians are aliens. And some people think that Native Americans are aliens. So it's very easy to see how this subject can get tied in with like religious and political things that are happening right now, and the UFO becomes part of the war. I mean, because it's always been part of the war. It's always been something that's been seen during times of war on battlefields. It's a shield in the sky, a boat, it's a chariot, it's a pillar, it's a cannonball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we saw this in Ukraine, stories about UFOs. We've seen this. Well, I mean, we had the 1950s, the UFOs over the Capitol. Some people say that was staged. How are you how am I supposed to know? How are you supposed to know what is real? How are you supposed to know what's real? You can't, and that's the point. You don't know what's real. You'll never know what's real because the same government that lied to you for 75 years plus is suddenly going to tell you the truth, and you're going to believe them when they have motivations to start a global world war, when they're in the process of doing it. You're going to trust them to not tie those two things together to exploit them. You're going to trust people that lie professionally. And you're going to trust an administration that just got done undoing everything that its base worked to accomplish. You're going to trust them to tell you about some secret UFO documents and files? Get the hell out of here. I think you're more delusional than they are if you think that. I think something else is going on here. We'll go to the chat room. Anastasia says, I strongly believe that UFOs are demons. And we're going to go to the chat tonight with a link that you'll be able to call into the show, or really just you click the link and it's not really a call in per se. It's more of like a log on, but you'll be able to give your opinions. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm going to hear you out because I don't know. I just know that they can't be like the demon caricature, because etymologically that's not what the word means. And a lot of the demonology is it's a byproduct of the Catholic Church, and it's a byproduct of exaggerating the features of foreign deities, which are already personifications of nature and different philosophical concepts in some cases. And also it's a byproduct of, if you read Duplancy's Infernal Dictionary, which I have here on my shelf, you can see it, this 2-volume leather-bound set, special printing of the Infernal Dictionary. If you read that and you look at the depictions that Duplancy had drawn, I think he drew almost all of them in the book. It's very clearly representative of rabbis. It's very clearly representative of people, not just rabbis, but people in society that do really bad things, and they start to look like these was it the Magus by Francis Barrett also depicts like the spirit of Lucifer, of the Antichrist. They're spirits, and they manifest, like your physical features change when you behave in a certain way. And that's what these demons become. So they can't be demons in those ways. So you'd have to explain what a demon is otherwise. And again, I'm open to all of that. So we'll get into that in the second hour of tonight's show. If you're just joining us, tstradio.info is the website. If you're watching the video of tonight's show, I'd like to welcome you, but I'd also like to direct you to our audio archive, which is linked up in the comments, or I guess above the comments in the description of the show below. And you'll be able to get access to the ad-free archive if you subscribe. You can get copies of my books below, and you can support us. We don't take any money here on YouTube. We are listener supported through subscriptions and book sales. But if you would like to support us, we have a Buy Me a Coffee option below. And of course, I would very much appreciate that. So let's go to some of these stories. Let's see what we have in the news other than J.D. Vance and demons and lies from the White House about Iran. Let's go to the fallen angels first. And by fallen angels, I mean things that fall from the sky that are not aliens or actual angels, but fireballs, meteors. There have been a number of fireballs that have been seen over the United States in the last couple of weeks. There have been a handful of them that have been seen over here in Japan in the last 3 to 4 months as well. There have been some that have been seen, I've heard reports, I don't know if it's true, some in China. I don't ever believe anything. I don't believe what comes out of our media. I definitely don't believe what comes out of Chinese media. In fact, I think it's the same people controlling it. Google built their firewall. So, I mean, It's literally the same companies that put up the firewalls. So we're talking about fireballs, not firewalls. And there's a lot of fireballs that have been seen over the United States. There have been some. This one is in Ohio. The pictures from Pittsburgh. There's some. This story's about Ohio. There are stories from here's Olmsted Falls in Ohio. You can see meteor coming down. That's just one of many reports. But there have been a lot of these reports recently. And there have been some that are really strange that don't really look like meteors. They do look like some kind of ship or something that appears to be structured unnaturally. But are those videos real? This is the problem. We can't even figure out if a picture or a video of a meteor is real. Now, much of that is fake. I don't know what to believe, and that is kind of the whole point. We'll never have a clear answer, and the more and more that social media allows for this kind of material, like X allows for just the open distribution of fake information, which is another reason that Elon Musk purchased it, and they pushed Elon Musk as this big promoter of free speech. It's that and the robots and the AI and all this to gather data and information. But you can't, like, who knows what's going on? There's a guy on X named Dom Luker. Some people send me stuff from him. I don't really know who the guy is, but I just saw this funny thing on X about how he's posting some of these videos, right, about these falling objects. And this is 3 fireballs were spotted in the skies over Austin, Texas. And Owen Schroyer had actually done a video on this. You can see the fireballs here. And the reader context that was added is the original video was stolen from this user, posted here without attribution and with a watermark added. So people are just fighting on X over who has the rights to who published the video first. It's just so childish and so immature. I don't know how you can watermark a video that someone else took and claim that it's yours. I just don't understand social media. But it's just like that's the user context. It's like, hey, you stole that video from me. Is it a real video? What is that? What exactly is that that's falling? Is it a meteor? I don't know. I mean, half the stuff that I see Dom Luker, whoever that guy is, post is fake trash. So like, I don't know what to believe. Again, that's the point. We don't know what to believe. And that's how it's going to go, whether the president or the White House or the Pentagon says anything about UFOs or not, or aliens. It's going to be the same. People are going to choose not to believe, or they're going to choose to believe. That's the bottom line. Government says no such thing as aliens, all made up. People are like, well, I'm going to believe anyway. And then when the government says, oh, I'm going to acknowledge that there's UFOs and aliens. And then there's going to be people that are like, well, now since you said it, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. It's like, if you watch Project Camelot with Carrie Cassidy, and she's just gotten so insufferable recently. I mean, she's always been a little bit insufferable, but recently she's just intolerable. And you listen to Carrie Cassidy, and like we played an interview that she did with Nino Rodriguez a couple of episodes ago. The show is called Project Scamelot. And if you listen to this interview, like Nino Rodriguez is agreeing with her, but in the UFO conspiracy world, a lot of these people just have to be right, and they have to say something that's different. So even when Carrie Cassidy is talking to somebody who agrees with her crazy, wacko ideas, like there's stargates in Iran, and that's what the war is really about. Well, that, and it's about women's rights, she said. So it's women's rights and stargates. I don't know how you get those two things. I don't think go together. I don't think they're relevant, but she says it's all about the stargates. Nino Rodriguez chimes in and gives his opinion and agrees with her, and then she shoots it down and says, well, no, that's not really and she's like, well, you just said that, and then he agrees with you, but you have to be right. You have to be right. That's kind of what this is in ufology, or at least what it's become. I don't think it's always been like that. It's like that in conspiracy land or whatever you want to call it. So the government now says UFOs are real. Well, hold on a second. Now that you say that they're real, I don't know. They're probably demons. I think that the whole demon thing connects and ties into the Israel thing. I think it ties into the blatant compromise, blackmail, etc. of the White House. Because as the White House has proceeded to rededicate, America to God, or rededicate the country to God, and they've given Trump the Jerusalem crown and the Israel award, and rabbis have said he's the Moshiach. I think that the idea that these things are demons is going to be it's not a new idea, but the idea is going to be pushed. It's going to be tied in with all this UFO quote disclosure, because it's going to get people to think, okay, well, if they're demons, then I need to go to God. I need to feel that God is going to protect me from these demons. And they're going to go and they're going to find themselves withdrawn into their respective religious faiths and beliefs. And so, in other words, the idea that these alien ships or these UFOs, whatever you want to call them, are demons is going to drive an already religious fanaticism to new levels of fanaticism. They're doing it with the war in Iran. Troops have been told this is Armageddon. Trump's been anointed by God to do this, or Jesus to do this. And if the war is being crafted in this way, so like, first of all, if they're willing to lie about war, if they're willing to lie about things that could get millions or maybe even 1 billion people killed, who knows? Why would they tell you the truth about anything? That's the first thing I've already looked at tonight. But if they're willing to say that this is all part of like an apocalyptic end times prophecy being fulfilled, which is also nonsense when you read the so-called prophecies. I thought it was a single book. It turns out it's like 5, 6, 7, 8 books in the Bible, and you have to read them all, kind of like how SpongeBob tells the secret formula, of the Krabby Patty. You got to drink jelly beans through a straw, and you have to drink chocolate milk on a Tuesday when it's not raining outside or something like that. Stand on one foot, hop up and down. You get to do all these ridiculously weird things, and then you get the formula. It's all part of the secret code that Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob put together, so Plankton couldn't steal the secret formula. But it's kind of like those hoops. You have to jump through these hoops. You have to drink the jelly beans through the straw to get anywhere. And then at the end, you find out that all that was just like nonsense, and it keeps the formula, this little bottle. Apocalyptic end times prophecy is what they've tried to convince the public. The media has done this as well. That's what the war in Iran is really about. So if they're willing to do that, and the UFO subject is coming up in the middle of all of this, and the UFO subject, the vice president says they're demons, then I'm pretty sure there's got to be a connection. There's got to be a way to tie this all together. At the very least, if it's not just for propaganda, to get the public who are very religious to be a lot more fanatical about it, to create more religious zealots. Not only are we watching the apocalypse, not only are we watching Armageddon unfold, we're going to have this big war, and Jesus is going to come back. Although the people that are pushing this idea also want to destroy Al-Aqsa and build a temple that would eradicate the sacrifice of Jesus. But what do I know? I'm not a Christian, right? We're watching that unfold, and then the demon UFO connection gets injected into the conversation. And now people that are already fanatical, people that are already out of their minds wanting holy war, are going to be doubling down. Not only are we fighting a holy war, but now there's demons, and they're above us. And since they've, in the media, New York Times, since they've redefined the UFO as the UAP, and a lot of people are convinced that this stuff started in the last like 20, 30 years, maybe 50 years. Not that it goes back into the ancient world. You have successfully, essentially rewritten history. They've also done this with October 7th and the Islamic Revolution in Iran. You've essentially rewritten history. You've co-opted and hijacked the UFO narrative or the UFO subject, and you've injected it for religious purposes into a war. So no, I don't think we're going to get anything from the White House that doesn't push more religious holy war type narratives. That's probably why it's not a new idea, but that's probably why they're pushing this idea of demons. They're demons. They're demons. They're demons. They're demons. I think it's going to be roped into the Iran story. All right, now that we've looked at some of the fallen angel stuff, fallen angels meaning things coming down from the sky. You could look at that. There's clearly something coming down from the sky, and you could do a Project Scamelot, and say those are actually alien ships being shot down, or they could be meteors. But I've seen some of them that look very strange. But what do I know about meteors? I don't know anything about meteors. So I guess your guess is as good as mine. Let's look at this story here from the Daily Mail. It's tabloid, yes. 2026, but it's a story that goes back to 2025. Melissa Cassius has not been seen since June 26th of 2025. Have you seen this story? Her family said she uncharacteristically decided to work from home, but was spotted miles from her house, miles from their house, her family's house, walking alone with her wallet, phone, and I thought that this was a weird way to write it, or keys. And keys. AI probably wrote this. Cassius, 54, was an administrative assistant at Los Alamos National Laboratory, which, of course, was one of the main facilities in the Manhattan Project. Her disappearance takes the number of people from the scientific community potentially holding highly sensitive secrets who have gone missing or died since June 2025 to six. 6 people since 2025 have gone missing or died who are directly connected to national laboratories, the aerospace industry, or the military. This is very weird. Of those 6, 5 had ties to nuclear research or missile technology, and 4 of them can now be shown to have some type of connection to each other. Cassius went missing just 4 days after respected NASA scientist Monica Reza mysteriously disappeared while hiking with friends in California. Both women had worked at facilities with ties to retired Air Force General William Neal McCaslin, who also vanished near a hiking trail in Albuquerque, New Mexico on February 27th, 2026. And you can see that it's probably not a coincidence that these people worked at the same facilities that were connected to a missing Air Force general. I mean, if they just worked at the same facilities and there was no general that went missing, that's not as weird. But the fact that a general who had maybe overseen some of those projects, an Air Force general, had went missing, and he was like working alongside of these people at these facilities or overseeing some projects, that's when it becomes really suspicious. Now, according to FBI Assistant Director Chris Swecker, while her husband and daughter have previously suspected that Casillas left over personal and financial struggles, the FBI Assistant Director Chris Sweckler told the Daily Mail he is concerned her disappearance is part of a much larger pattern. Well, good thing the FBI can see a pattern. They haven't been able to pick that out with Epstein, but they got one here. They got a live one here. Now, it is possible that this is a coincidence. It is possible that this girl goes hiking. She takes a walk. I mean, if I go for a walk, I don't now take my phone and my keys, but when I went for a walk in Tucson, I would always lock my door and take my keys and take my phone, because I didn't know if I was going to get shot, stabbed, mugged, raped, tortured. I don't know. It was extremely dangerous in Tucson. Here in Japan, not so much. I could leave my door open, walk around the block, come back. It's all good. But I would take my phone and it's not really that weird. Someone goes walking with their phone or keys, either the phone or keys or wallet. Maybe she was walking to the store to get something. Who knows? She wanted to take a walk. That's not really that suspicious. It's not really that suspicious that she goes, for a a walk and disappears. People go for walks and disappear all the time. People go for walks and get lost a lot. In fact, I think that's a lot of what the missing 411 is. You know, I've gone for hikes in the desert and I've almost gotten lost. And I had to rely on the landmarks to get me back to the road where I parked my car. Plus, you know, you go out to places like this. I mean, let's say for the general, the Air Force general, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Not really the safest place. Albuquerque, New Mexico is a place that I actually, at one point, very temporarily for like 30 seconds, considered moving. I wanted to move somewhere cheap and I wanted to move to the desert. And when I looked up the crime in Albuquerque, I was like, okay, not only is this like one of the poorest places in the country, this is one of the most crime-ridden places in the country. No, I'm not going to go there. I chose Tucson, which is slightly better. It's kind of in the middle. Tucson got a lot worse, but Albuquerque's awful. It's not really that weird that someone goes hiking somewhere near Albuquerque and goes missing. Yes, it's weird that it's an Air Force general, and yes, it's weird that Monica Reza also disappeared while hiking in California, but it's not that weird as an individual story. What makes it weird is that these people worked together or worked in association, and they all worked on similar projects. That's what makes it suspicious, and that's what makes it weird. And when you start getting more than one person, that's when things start getting really, really suspicious. Swecker at the FBI explained that Casillas' work at the Los Alamos National Lab may have made her a target for abduction, which is a funny way to put it, considering we're kind of alluding to UFOs here. Since an administrative assistant often has access to the same sensitive files their superiors have. Swecker of the FBI said in a classified lab or just a high clearance lab, they would basically be in the know on what does this say? In the know. Hold on a second. I got to read that again. They would basically be in the know on what's going on. And it wouldn't be the first time their administrative assistant has been targeted. So apparently this has happened before through Los Alamos. Casillas and her husband, Mark Casillas, both worked at the Los Alamos National Lab at the time of her disappearance 8 months ago. According to Mark, a superintendent at the lab, Casillas had the security badge needed to enter LANL with her when she dropped him off at work that morning. However, their daughter, Sierra, told investigators that Casillas visited the teen's place of work to drop off a sandwich and then claimed she was returning home after forgetting the badge. The day went from strange to alarming when Casillas' supervisor at the nuclear research lab told Mark she had never reported to work or worked from home that day, that's another thing that tipped them off that something was weird. Now, based on what's happening here, it would be just as possible that maybe I'm not accusing her of something. I don't know anything about this woman. I'm just saying, since we don't know anything, it's like a Schrodinger's cat situation. Maybe she was part of something, got the call, acted all sort of normal, and then disappeared willingly. It's equally as possible. I'm going to go for a hike, and then you just don't come back. I'm going to go for a pack of cigarettes. Dad will be back in a half hour, and then dad never comes back. Or mom's going to go, get her nails done, and then she doesn't come back, and she's shacked up with some other guy. People go and they disappear. It's not always because they're abducted. It is possible that maybe these people are not being abducted in some sinister project, but maybe they got the call. Now's the time. Now's the time. We're activating the project. You got to leave everything behind. Come with us. I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm saying it's possible. Possible. It's something to consider. Now, that's just based on the very little information that we have. And you would expect that if that was the case, these stories, stories of abductions would probably be placed in the news by very powerful organizations and people to make people think that it was like an abduction or it was like a murder, et cetera, when really they were part of something that was big. But again, I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there. Misto Stokas in the chat says, it's pretty hard to disappear these days, even if you wanted to. Yeah, but again, if you were part of something big and you had the go ahead to, like, we're initiating phase whatever of the project, and now it's time to come with us, they can make you disappear. And obviously if what the news is reporting, the implication that these people were abducted for what they knew or what they had access to, then you could definitely make people disappear. Obviously, it's not an amateur job. It's clearly something of a powerful entity involved here that's doing this. And by entity, I don't mean aliens. Jesus, I just mean, an agency, a black program, something like that. You can definitely make people disappear. I mean, I think the easiest way to disappear nowadays is just don't have your phone on you. People don't know how to contact you. They freak out. You can kind of slip away while they're trying to find you through the digital footprint. You can slip away if you're not connected to it. But it's clearly something here that's probably, it goes beyond coincidence. There's a pattern here, and there's something that probably never know the answer to, honestly. Surveillance cameras last spotted Cassius walking alone eastward on state road 518, roughly 3 miles from her home, around 2:20 p.m. local time. Nobody or any definitive evidence of her whereabouts has been found since. Now, that made me consider that maybe this woman was part of something where she willingly disappeared. You walk to X location, we'll pick you up. There's no trail or trace, and that's the end of it. The Daily Mail reports this. Ashley Flowers of the Crime Junkie podcast. I think someone I used to know used to listen to that podcast. It's pretty popular, but it's actually not that. It's a pretty decent podcast. They have a lot of they have records of all they go find all the records of what happens, and they just read it all on air. Cassius, according to Ashley Flowers, had allegedly lost her national security clearance at LANL due to her family's money issues that could have made her a target for blackmail. So there's other people thinking the same way that I am. Maybe she was blackmailed. You come to this location at this time, or we kill your family. So that's a possibility too. Yes, that would mean that she was abducted, but maybe it was a different kind of abduction. It wasn't like she was unaware. It was that she was being blackmailed to participate. Do this, or we kill your husband. We kill your daughter. And I don't know what her daily routine was, but maybe that's why her daughter and her husband both thought that her behavior that morning when she dropped them off and then brought a sandwich was weird. She was making sure she spent the last few minutes with them before she disappeared. Antonio in the chat says that's what you get for working for the government. Probably. Maybe so. Swecker noted, this is the FBI Swecker, noted that the disappearances of Cassius, Reza, and McCasland may all be unique and unconnected, but federal officials should not take chances given the critical technology or information each was entrusted with. I mean, it's not really out of the realm of possibility that these people could also be working for a foreign government. Is that possible? Yeah. I'm not slandering anybody. I don't know anything about these people. I'm not married to these ideas. I'm just listing possibilities. It wouldn't be the first time that someone got arrested or that someone disappeared, maybe they were found later, who were working for a foreign government. There's a whole bunch of them who have worked for China. There are a whole bunch of them. Remember the, what was that guy's name? Charles Lieber. Charles Lieber. Let me pull this up on the screen. Charles Lieber. This was in the middle of the quote unquote pandemic. Charles Lieber was working at Harvard, and he was working for China. Remember this? Charles Lieber was working for China. There's a whole bunch of people in the U.S. that have been caught working for foreign countries. I'm not saying that this woman was working for a foreign country. I don't know anything about the woman. I'm saying that it might not just be a sinister abduction. It might be that, I mean, that could be what happened, but it could be that they were blackmailed. It could be that they were willingly part of something. It could be that they were working for a foreign entity. It could be a lot of things. And that's what this show is about thinking about these possibilities and trying to figure out what's happening. And that's really what investigations are supposed to be. I'm sure the FBI has considered all the things that I'm saying and far more. The FBI has probably considered, twice the amount of things I've considered. I'm not a federal investigator. I don't have access to anything. I just got these news articles and I'm trying to read in between the lines. So it's possible that in all of these cases, we're dealing with something that, if it's connected to UFOs or technologies of some otherworldly, whether it's actually otherworldly or it's just like beyond the scope of what we think is possible that we've developed, if it does have anything to do with that, it might not have anything to do with aliens. It might just be advanced tech. It might just be something that we develop that we don't want other people to know about, or that people are selling to other countries. Just like there's a whole long list of things that are possible. There's also been reports in China of generals that have been purged from the military. I don't know if you heard about this. My friend Mike D texted me this morning and said he wasn't sure if this was confirmed. Again, I don't believe anything that comes out of China. I don't believe anything that comes out of our press, or this is the Guardian. I don't really believe anything that comes out of the Guardian per se. I don't think everything's a lie, but I don't necessarily believe all the stories that are published. But reportedly, China's top political advisory board has voted to remove 3 generals from its ranks as a sweeping purge of the military continues before this week's annual 2 sessions gathering. So they've removed a couple of top generals from their military. Why was that? Maybe those officials were working with some kind of black program too. I don't have any idea. I have no idea. I'm simply presenting the information to you tonight, and it's not even really about letting you make up your own mind. I'm just putting it all into one place so that you can have a source of some thoughts on these things. We also have had the murder of an MIT fusion scientist, and this was back in 2025. Theoretical physicist and director of MIT Plasma Science and Fusion Center, Nuno Loureiro, was murdered in his home in Brookline, Massachusetts. Investigators have made several breakthroughs in the unusual case, linking the prime suspect to a separate deadly mass shooting at Brown University earlier in December. The suspected shooter, Claudio Neves Valente, was found dead in a storage unit in New Hampshire. This was a couple of months ago on a Thursday following a 6-day manhunt. But as bizarre twists add up in the case, investigators, and I mean, look at this article. There's no space between investigators and the word "and." It's just, this stuff's definitely written by AI, or people are they're becoming more illiterate, or just becoming dumber and maybe they're lazier and they're not really editing this stuff. Investigators and the surviving loved ones of the victims are left with more questions than answers. And I mean, clearly what this sounds like is a hit. Somebody was hired or given the instructions to kill this scientist. And then they went and killed the person that killed the scientist to tie up some loose ends. So it seems like some kind of organized crime, whether that's government or something else, we don't know. As the Wall Street Journal reported over the weekend, again, 3 months ago, Neves Valente, a physics graduate from Portugal, had a reputation for being difficult in class despite being remembered fondly by others. It's the same exact story every time there's ever a story about a shooter. Like, well, they one time or another, people thought that they were a nice person. It's like, well, yeah, if they were a bad person, you would have reported them. If they seem like a nice person, you're not going to do anything. So it's just such a weird thing that they always report like this. Former Brown physics professor Scott Watson, who spent a lot of time with Neves Valente at Brown, said he became sometimes angry about life at Brown in esoteric ways, complaining about the quality of the fish he was served, for instance. Is probably a class A whack job. Probably listening to Project Scam-A-Lot. They put nanites in the fish, man. Oh my God, there's there's nanodust in the fish. I got to kill everybody. By the way, on that note, there's a lot of this going around. I don't know if you've noticed this. I'm not going to say who it is, but I talked to somebody recently who's been a guest on this show who I'm like genuinely concerned for. They seem to have like they're saying that people are following them and that they're being targeted and that putting thoughts in their head. And I'm not going to dispute that because we know that that was the case with Aaron Alexis, the Washington Naval Yard shooter. Remember him? And he was being followed and they were putting voices into his head. But I've now come across a number of people that these aren't exoteric. These are, or I should say, these aren't esoteric. They're exoteric. Like a friend of mine, from my oldest friend from high school, I don't know if he's listening tonight, said that he was interacting with someone that we went to school with who thinks that the God Jehovah is coming after him, and that he went to my friend's house and stayed up all night and was like in the yard screaming about things and picking up sticks, and said that my friend's neighbor was hitting him with an LRAD. He got out of like a mental institution, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, my friend said. And we have another friend from our class. There's 2 people in our class from high school who also lost his mind like this. And I mean, he was such the other guy I know pretty well. He's a pretty smart guy. He was a fun guy to hang out with. And he was like a down to earth guy, but he kind of like lost his mind. And it wasn't because like he thought his TV was watching him, because your TV is watching you if you have a smart TV. People thought that's why he was crazy. And that gets tied in with the stuff of like, well, they're monitoring me, they're watching me. That stuff is real, but it feels like more and more people are behaving like this. Like when this is happening with people so close to me, people I grew up with or went to high school with, there's something, I don't know if there's something in the water, or I think a lot of it has to do with social media. I think too many people watch David Wilcock and Project Scam-A-Lot and they lose their mind. But it's also like a chicken or egg thing. Are they watching that because they don't have much awareness of the world? Or do they not have much awareness of the world because they had some curiosity and then it was poisoned by people like Carrie Cassidy? I don't know. But I feel like that, coupled with the AI psychosis, which is going to probably become a clinical diagnosis at some point, indicates that there's something wrong with our society. And there's clearly something happening on social media that's driving people to act this way. And there's something wrong with all the chat bots and the AI assistants that people are talking to, which is part of a much larger social issue, of course. Wouldn't be doing that if we had a functioning society. But I think also that it's definitely drug usage. And you could say what you want about one drug or another, but the one kid that I knew in high school, the one that I was much closer with and knew pretty well, he was on every type of drug, I think, imaginable. I mean, he did all kinds of stuff. And then you have this other guy. I didn't know him as well. It was in my class. He was on, I don't know the name of it. My friend and I always joked and called it space crystals. It might have been crystals. I don't know if he thought he was a dragon. I don't know what he was, but I'm pretty sure that drugs played a significant role in their paranoia. But remember, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean that they're not coming after you. So we have a fusion scientist at MIT who was murdered a handful of months ago. We also have the Caltech astrophysicist. Maybe you remember this story. Caltech astrophysicist who was shot on the porch of his South California home. And this story, I'm pretty sure this story is connected to NASA. This guy, Dr. Carl Grillmer, here's an LA Times article on it if you want to look it up and read it. Dr. Carl Grillmer is a senior at Caltech and a NASA astrophysicist. He was shot on the front porch of his home, kind of like Bill Cooper. And where he lived was very close to Lockheed Skunk Works, hence Skunk Doesn't Works, the name of tonight's show. Reportedly, he was a lead on a project called Mona Lisa, which was a project that was intending to detect thermal anomalies in permanently shadowed lunar craters. People have theorized that his sensors could detect things like maybe infrastructure on the moon, or what maybe isn't, whether that's on the surface or under the surface of the moon. And his death occurred just as he was finalizing the targeting data for this year's 2026 launch. The suspect, Freddie Snyder, 29, was arrested and charged with Carl Grillmar's slaying, as well as carjacking and burglary. I don't know if those two things are connected, but if you're going to get someone to do this kind of work for you, you know, whatever you get them, they're a druggie or whatever. You got feds that feed them this stuff, and then they give them the target, and then they're just, you know, they're a useful idiot. I don't know if this person was already a career criminal, carjacking, burglary, and then they paid them or drugged them or something to carry out this hit. I don't know if that's what it was. But once you start factoring all of this in, like you got a guy who was studying things that could be considered potential anomalies on the moon, or at least dark areas of the moon. You got an MIT fusion scientist who gets killed by someone who's also acting very bizarre and strange. You've got a couple of people that go missing while hiking, including you've got an Air Force general, scientists at Los Alamos National Laboratory. You know, when you start putting all this together, yeah, obviously there's something going on here. If you've got national laboratories, if you've got the Air Force, leaders in the Air Force, if you've got MIT, these sound like hits. These sound like something is going on. You've got Caltech involved. These are the big companies. You've got NASA involved as an extension of that. These are the big agencies, the big companies, the big what's the word I'm looking for? This is like the aerospace industry. This is the military. This is like advanced technologies. There's a lot of stuff happening here. And this kind of implies that, again, I kind of think that this means that these people might have been part of a larger project, whether they were aware of it or not. Maybe they became aware of it and tried to do something about it. I just got done playing the video game Days Gone. Anybody played that game, Days Gone? I have not played through a video game since Spyro the Dragon. I played the redone version of that. It's the last time I beat a game. I can't play games that long anymore, but I really like Days Gone. And in Days Gone, you find out that Nero, this like biotech type company, they had hired they hired a bunch of people at this laboratory up in Oregon to study nature, study plants and all this. And on the surface, they were studying like different forms of agriculture and plants and whatnot. And there was a guy at the laboratory. This is in the video game story the game I just played. In the story, this guy's like he thinks that they're doing something else. They're actually experimenting with genetics and doing all these other experiments under the surface, and the research for agriculture is being used for this, unbeknownst to the people doing the research. So he tries to expose it, and then it's like, it's like a Hollywood movie. It turns out that the laboratory is responsible for this kind of zombie outbreak. It's a really, really good game. I wish they'd make another one, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I was just playing that last night after reading these stories, and I started thinking, okay, well, I'm not getting my idea from a video game and saying it's a video game. I'm saying that it's possible that these people were working on projects that they weren't aware of, like what the underlying purpose was, or they were executed for their trouble, or in other cases, they were, and the ones that weren't killed, they just disappeared. They went underground. Maybe their families were being blackmailed. There's a lot of different possibilities here. We also have a story from, there's a whole bunch of these stories. We have the, there's another person here. Hold on a second. I thought we had another person on my list here. Oh no, that's just this. I had two different versions of that same story about Neil McCaslin. Okay, so that we've made it through the list of the people that have gone missing or the people that have been killed. Now the question is, what do we do with all this information, and what do you think of all of this information? So we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. I don't know if anybody's going to take me up on this. I assume so, because we have a lot of people in the chat room. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, partially against my better judgment, I'm going to put, if this works, I'm going to put the studio invite link into the chat room. I'm doing it right now. So look down in the chat and look at this link. And when I click the button to send the link, assuming it works, what you're going to do is click the link if you want to join the show. Make sure your camera is off and you're in a quiet place. We're just going to do audio, and I will bring you on as a call so that you can tell me what you think of all of this stuff. And I tried to set up the call numbers again, but over here in Japan, all the companies that I tried to get a call number with, you have to have like a US based line, so they're not letting me do it. So we're just going to do the StreamYard link. So I'm going to click the link now. It's going into the chat. You might have to copy and paste it. I don't think you can click it, but there it is on the screen. Click that link. I'm going to star it. I don't know if that saves at the top of the page. Click that link, jump in the chat here, and make sure your camera's off. And you don't have to have an application to do this. It should just pop up on Safari, Google, whatever app you use for the internet. And then you have, I think, an option to type your name in. So type your name in, and then I'll bring you on if I see you in the chat room here. I think it should ding and let me know that someone's in there. So we'll put that stream link in there a few times. Don't be afraid to come on the show and let me know what you think about this. I really don't have any idea. I mean, I guess I have an idea in the sense that you got the military involved. You got Los Alamos, MIT, Caltech. This is like the aerospace industry. This is the tech industry. These people were clearly a part of something. Whether they participated willingly or unwillingly, they learned something they shouldn't have learned, or they were blackmailed. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here. I really have no idea beyond that. But I do know that Skunk works. Let's go first, assuming that this works. This is our inaugural. Let's take calls again on the Secret Teachings. We used to do this a long time ago. Let's go to Internet Rebellion. Username Internet Rebellion. Here we go. You are on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me?
Mr. Internet Rebellion. Yes, I can hear you. What do you think about this? Are you there? Hello, hello.
Yeah, I can hear
you. Yeah, can you hear me? Hello. Okay, go ahead. What do you think about all of this?
Yeah. The first thing I thought of when the disappearances were happening that were connected to this was exactly like what you were saying. They got a call and they finished up whatever they were doing and disappeared, just like they were told to do. Because it's, for something to be this big, it's got to have weight to it. It's got to be believable. So people got to die and other people have to disappear.
So in a sense, they were sort of part of a project. I know I already explained this. You said you agreed with me, but people were part of a project. And in the cases where they weren't killed, the people that just vanished and disappeared, the people hiking, Air Force General and the scientists at Los Alamos, they knew what was happening. They said goodbye to their families and they vanished into the ether, in a sense.
By the script.
Being blackmailed, maybe we'll kill your family if you don't do this.
Yeah, but I don't know enough to come up with that. I'm looking at it as, the simple-minded answer.
Well,
What would be
at the very... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. What would, you use the examples from something you saw in a video game story arc.
Yes, the Days Gone video game I just got done playing. Because I finished the game last night while I was reading all this stuff, so that's why I mentioned it.
I think a lot of this stuff ends up in media in advance, so that when it happens in real life, they'll say, well, that's just something you saw on a TV show or something you read in a book. They're using a lot of this. A lot of this is a script. That it almost becomes a metaphor that you just have to just make a reference to it, and they get the idea. They know what to do.
So it's like predictive programming, or it could just be that these kinds of things happen in real life, and then the inspiration is derived from real life for things like video games and movies. Let me play you something, play the whole audience something. My wife and I were looking for some new movies to watch, and she had never seen the movie The Day After Tomorrow, so we watched that, and she said, "Oh, I like this disaster movie." So I said, "Oh, there's a whole bunch of Roland Emmerich disaster movies we could watch, like Independence Day." One of my favorite movies, the 2012 movie, which I thought was awful, but I said we could watch that. So she said, "Oh, let's watch 2012." And I forgot this scene with Woody Harrelson in the trailer out at Yellowstone, and we actually watched this last night before I finished that video game, and this scene here is exactly, I think, what's happening now. Listen to this. Apparently unconnected, but when you put all the newspaper clippings side by side and see what they were working on, dead, dead, dead. That's literally what we have here. Have you seen that movie?
Oh yeah, I remember when that came out back in 2009, I think.
I think it was 2010 or 11, but that particular scene is what I always remembered from that movie more than anything else, because I think that's what we have here in this case. Dead, 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 or at least disappear, disappear, disappear. Part of something big.
Yes. Where when someone knows that they know something that's about to break in, big news, why they need to disappear, I don't understand, what's the personal reason they would decide to take. Well, okay, one of my suspicions also was someone is taking advantage of a situation that their disappearance has nothing to do with whatever's in the news. Because this is in the news, they disappear, and then we all assume this is the reason why they disappeared, where it had nothing to do with it at all.
Well, that's, I think, part of what's being reported is that a lot of people just assume that it has something to do with UFOs. But outside
that's a regular part of the line of the reporting, though. A lot of times they always say there's never a known motive for whatever has occurred. Shooting, we don't know any motives. And also, like when a bank robbery happens, it's always an undisclosed amount of money.
In this case, the FBI clearly thinks that there's something that's bigger here. And I don't know how much the FBI has disclosed since that particular article was written, since that is his name, Swecker at the FBI had made those comments. But clearly, if the FBI is acknowledging that this is part of a larger conspiracy or plot, there's something big happening. But back to your point, I don't know if it has anything to do with UFOs. I mean, yes, there's an Air Force general, okay, something with Los Alamos, MIT, Caltech. It probably has something to do, if anything, super conspiratorial. It probably has something to do with corporate espionage, foreign governments working with foreign governments like Charles Lieber. It probably has something more to do with stuff like that than it does with aliens. That's just my assessment. But I guess it's possible if this is all happening alongside of the so-called disclosure of UFO alien related stuff, which I still don't think we're going to see anything with the White House about that. But if it's happening alongside of that, it's very easy to say, well, they're disappearing and they're being killed because they know too much about aliens. Last time I checked, Los Alamos was never a location where they took alien tech. Neither was Caltech, maybe MIT, but I don't think MIT was either. The Air Force is the only connection you have directly to UFOs because of the old story of Roswell and Wright-Patterson. So I don't know how we jumped to UFOs, but I suppose it's a possibility. Thank you for your call. You're the first person to call into the show since we started taking calls again. Thank you.
Success.
Yes, success. Any final comments? And we're going to go to Brent.
Nah, I was thinking the same thing. Let's move on to the next person.
All right, sounds good. You have a good night. Bye-bye. Oh, hey, actually, one more thing. Where are you listening from tonight?
South Bend, Indiana.
Indiana. All right. Well, take care in Indiana. Bye-bye. All right, let's go to Brent. Brent, you are on the air.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great. What is your take on all of this?
Well, peace and love and gratitude. To keep on subject, the skunk works. I think we can all agree here that something stinks.
It's the smell of a skunk. Something stinks for sure. What do you think it is, though, based on all the things that I've proposed? I mean, I don't have the answers, but I'm just thinking out loud. What do you think? Do you think something different than the last caller?
I think that situations like this require a lot more thought than I could put into just hearing this the first time, explicate upon. I always give myself at least 24 to 48 hours to make any determination on what's actually happening. Like in your last, the broadcast I was most fascinated by this week by you was the one that was labeled by Laura as shutdown 2.0.
Oh yes, the energy and water show that we did, the water war show. Yes.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for that because I think that was an explique, and even it had some alignments in the stars that were that predicted that there would be a shining of hidden knowledge on Wednesday. So it came the next day, I think, on your broadcast I caught. But I want to thank you for that. I'm going to let somebody else get on if that's okay with you. I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
No problem. I appreciate the call. Thank you for calling, and I hope that you have a good night in Dallas, Texas. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye, Brent. Ricky is also here. We have Ricky we can bring on. I saw, Ricky, you had your camera on. Please make sure that your camera is turned off. As soon as you turn the camera off, I will bring you on to the air. I'll also remind listeners in the live chat, and I'll put that in there again, the link. Jump into the chat room. A lot of people have been jumping in here. It doesn't really, I don't think it gives you any notifications or anything like that, but as long as you click the link and you can hear my voice, you're in the chat, the video audio chat room, so then I can click you and bring you in. I don't have a call screener. So as long as you can hear my voice through the link, then you are good. Just hold on a second. Let's go to Ricky. Ricky from Nebraska. You're on the air. Ricky, I cannot hear you. It sounds like you got a lot of background noise and that you're maybe 50 yards away from your phone.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm in the car right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ricky. I cannot hear you if you're in the car. You got your phone on speaker. I can't hear what you're saying. I'm sorry. All right. Unfortunately, can't take that call from Ricky. Okay, we've got 2 or 3 other people that had popped in here and then left. If you want to get back on the air, here's the link again in the chat room. Click it, and I'll bring you back on here in just a moment. I'll remind you that you're listening to The Secret Teachings, tstradio.info, rdgable@yahoo.com. I am very appreciative of all of you who tune in for this Friday show, and of course, all of you who tune in for the show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on the audio side of the archive. If you don't like the advertisements you hear in the audio show, you haven't heard any tonight on the live stream, but in the audio version of the show, if you don't like the ads, which who does? I don't put those in there. They are stuck in there by Spreaker. We get paid by them. That's where the majority of our income comes from to finance the show. But if you don't like them, you can sign up at tstradio.info. We have weekly, monthly, and yearly subscriptions. We even have a lifetime subscription. Visit the website, click the links, and it's very straightforward, very simple. If you have any questions or have any issues, you can email me at rdgable@yahoo.com. You can also reach out on X and on Facebook, although I don't always see those messages because they're I don't know. I just don't get notifications for them. I don't know if it's censorship or it's something else. But anyway, there's a couple of places you can reach out to me, and I try to respond to everybody directly as fast as I can. Let's go back to see if we have Ricky. Well, I asked Ricky if he could change the phone setting. If not, we'll unfortunately have to move on to somebody else. But if you're in the chat, we have a lot of people in the chat, so don't feel nervous. Just click the link. I think I'm a nice guy. Click the link and you can come on and tell me what you think of all this. This is just like when we do Ground Zero and we've taken calls. So I know we have a lot of the same people listening, so don't be afraid to click that link and jump in here. You don't have to have an app or anything like this. Just click the link and it'll send you to the waiting room. While I'm waiting to see if we have anybody else call or we have some people fix their calls, I saw a few people in the chat said that they could not hear the audio clip that I played from that movie. And that is strange because I played it through the same channel that I played the intro. So let's see if I play it through another source here. Let's see if you can hear this clip from that movie 2012.
Keep that big a secret, Charlie. Somebody blow the whistle.
And every once in a while, some poor little sucker tries. Well, like these guys. Boom! Boom! Every one of these guys, dead, dead, dead!
Whoa, that's Professor Myers.
He ran the Atlantis shuttle program. What, did you know him?
Yeah, he helped me out with research on my book.
Oh, well, that must have been before his accident.
Myers is dead.
Oh, yeah, 2 months ago. He was one of my most avid listeners, and he had it all figured out. Everything the government was doing, where and why. He even sent me a map.
When I was watching this last night with my wife, this next part, which he turns out to be right. Woody Harrelson's character, Charlie, turns out to be right. Obviously, they are preparing for the end of the world. But the way that he says this, I just thought of like Carrie Cassidy or somebody.
Map for what, Charlie? What's the map for?
What's the map for?
They're building spaceships, man.
Shit, I have to go because
Yeah, that's
Earth, but
that's kind of how I felt when you go to like a conference and people come up to you. They got the med beds, man. I'm like, shit, man. I gotta go. I gotta be at a talk. I can't sit here and listen to this, you know. Tim Curley said it came through that time. That's weird. It didn't come through on the other channel. Oh well. Either way, you heard it that time. Let's go back to Ricky and see if Ricky cleaned up his audio.
Can
Ricky,
you hear
are
me?
you there? Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Excellent. Yeah. I guess to touch on the topic you're talking about. I mean, I kind of got a little tongue tied, but shoot. What
No
was I
worries.
saying?
Just take a breath and
Yeah.
say what you think. Skunk doesn't works. You think these people are part of something willingly or unwillingly, or blackmail,
Well,
or is it murder?
yeah, okay, there you go. So what I believe is, a lot of foreign adversaries, maybe they're all interconnected somehow. I couldn't tell you how, but normally if you follow the money, you know, it'll take you where you need to go. But the point I wanted to make was that these people that have all this technical knowledge, from their special, whatever their specialty is, being it physics or nuclear physics or whatever, what have you, um, they're probably being blackmailed by these foreign adversaries. And, once they get them, by the cojones, they, whatever, they probably offer them a payout, and a citizenship to whatever country got to them first. And I believe there's so many splinter cells. Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. That's all right. Go
There's
ahead.
so many splinter cells and networks out here, and that are just walking amongst the everyday citizen, and we wouldn't even know it. And they get to them, whether it be through drugs or maybe hell, they blackmail them with some inappropriate stuff on their computers or phones. Like it's really not hard in the information age to get somebody where you want them, and they probably offer them a payout and citizenship to the country of their choice in exchange for their information. Like I think honestly, Edward Snowden is not, the poster child for, being a patriot and supposedly putting all this information about the NSA on blast. No, I mean, he took a large amount of money, so they can't sit here and be on their high horse and tell me, oh, yeah, I did it for the people, man, because what the government's doing is wrong. Yeah, everybody knows the government's doing crazy stuff. But what are you going to do about it? That's the question.
Subscribe to Netflix and order Grubhub. I think that's what most Americans do.
I mean, like my family and I we're looking into an acreage right now, fixing to sell a house, just because. For instance, like there's a lot of radiation. Like I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, but I live out in Hastings, and ever since I moved out of the city, I can actually think straight, and I don't know if that's due to like 5G to 7G, what have you. I don't know if you're familiar with Sabrina Carpenter.
The singer?
Oh, no, excuse me, Sabrina Wallace. Yeah, Sabrina Wallace.
I'm not familiar with that name. I thought you meant the singer
Oh,
of the Disney
man,
girl.
you got to check out Sabrina Wallace. She has some YouTube stuff. She was in the, I guess, what was her? She went to school for it, but it was basically she tells you all about like the radio towers, and it kind of ties into MK Ultra and how they're using, microwaves and frequencies to, I guess excite the molecules in people's body. I think they've got that figured out. What do you think?
Well, I don't know anything about that person, so I can't speak one way or another. But
oh, you got to do a show on her.
I've heard all of the theories, and I've interviewed people about this for over 15 or about 15 years, 16 years.
Well,
so I'm very familiar with it. Yes.
Well, I know you've covered the Franklin scandal out of Omaha before. I've listened to one of your shows on that, and I was like, you touched on a lot of things that I wasn't aware of and how deep it went, and I was just like, wow, like that's right in my own backyard, and I'm very familiar with Boys Town. I mean, it's out West Omaha, and then what's not too far from Boys Town? It's West Rhodes Mall, where Stephen Hawking or whatever that kid's name, Stephen Hawkins, he shot up to Von Maur. I think it was that back in 2008. It's
Stephen Hawking, as in you're a different Stephen Hawking, not the wheelchair.
No, not the guy in the wheelchair.
Different Stephen Hawking. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that reminds. That's like a Florida man story. There was a guy in Florida whose name was, I think his name was Ronald McDonald, and he robbed a bunch of Burger Kings. That was a great story.
Oh no,
it's a Florida man story.
But touching on the Franklin scandal, I mean, that stuff's still going on in Omaha to this day. It's just different faces running it.
Ricky, I wouldn't be surprised if some of this stuff isn't connected with Skunk doesn't work's subject, isn't connected to those types of things. As a matter of fact, someone in the chat had said what I was going to finish the show with tonight, and that was that whether it's the CIA or it's the Mossad or it's British intelligence or something to that effect, if we're talking about foreign countries blackmailing people in this country, there are some people like Charles Lieber at Harvard who willingly worked with the Chinese and didn't disclose his contacts with China. But there are people that are probably not willingly participating. And if they're involved in something technological that maybe conflicts with other countries that are developing that same tech, like one of the top countries developing a lot of the technology that we see like artificial intelligence, the chatbot language models, it's Israel and Herzliya. So maybe these people, maybe they tried to recruit somebody. Maybe they directly wanted to shut down their research. I don't know, but countries like Israel, as much as China, could be considered suspicious, especially if we're talking about how this stuff connects to the war with Iran and all these ideas about ancient gods and the idea of whether you believe that or I believe that. Some people do believe that. I think that there might be a connection to Israel, as well as there might be a connection to China or any other country, whatever country that might be. But I saw someone in the chat mention that, and so I wanted to say it on air because I think that that might be a part of it as well. I don't really know, though, and we're just having a conversation tonight about what's being reported, the patterns.
Well,
Ricky, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, about that, it's really, if I could tell anybody, before they go off into the rabbit hole, if you will, yeah, it's just look at the patterns, and you have to look at motive. You have to look at motive as well. Who's trying to get the upper hand? I mean, how do they gain from it? I mean, it's the obvious questions, but I guess it's not so obvious sometimes.
Well, also we've had, if all six of these, we've talked about six people tonight. If these people have all died, that would be one thing, but they haven't all died.
No.
We assume they haven't all died. Some people have gone missing. Some people have been shot. We had a Caltech scientist who was shot. We had an MIT scientist who was shot. But we've had other people in the Air Force or at Los Alamos who've just gone missing. We might assume that they're dead, but it's like a mixture of things. Some people might have gone missing under mysterious circumstances. Some people might have gone missing. It was just a coincidence. And some people were actually shot and killed. So, I mean, it's still part of the pattern, but all that information, I mean, the FBI is obviously considering the same things that we are. This is part of some larger black operation.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly what the aim is or where they're going with it. But ultimately, if you break it down to, its basic form, it's control. They're trying to move things over to, New World Order, if you will. I mean, and it's all scripted. They've had this all figured out for decades. I mean, it goes so deep. But I appreciate you having me on and let me be heard. I really love your show, man. I listen to it all the time at work.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I think that we have a lot of people in the chat that would like to call in tonight. Maybe they just don't. Maybe they're a little bit nervous, but I don't know if you were nervous or not. Ricky's totally fine though. Ricky's totally
for sure,
fine.
man. Like I said, I listen to you religiously, man. It helps me pass my day, but it also helps me think. And not only that, it helps me to articulate things better. Obviously, I'm not meant for radio, but I do like to keep the conversation going because, it opens. It's like enlightening people, and I guess that's my duty here on Earth. I don't know. Just
I think
keep the conversation going and just live in truth and light, man, and be kind to people. That's all.
Be kind to people. Truth and light can become a very toxic talking point for some people that repeat it from the law of one, but otherwise I get the gist of what you're saying. I appreciate you calling in, Ricky. Thank you for having the courage to be one of the first people to call into the secret teachings once we got that back up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
All right, you have a good night. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Likewise.
All right, there goes Ricky. I'm going to post in the chat room one more time. We've got about 10 minutes left here on the show. If you would like to come on to the show and speak with us tonight, give me your opinion on the Skunk Doesn't Works, go ahead and do that now. we'll try to take as many calls as we can, or if we don't get many more, we'll stay with the people that do call in. Let's go to, I believe it's Amber in Florida. Amber in my home state of Florida. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I think you got the clearest phone connection of all the callers so far. Yes, very well.
Okay, great. God, I don't know what to say.
Well, what do you think? Are we talking about some kind of black program? Are we talking about blackmail? Are we talking about foreign countries? Are we talking about aliens and UFOs? What do you think? Skunk doesn't works.
I don't think it's aliens and UFOs, but projects, foreign entities. I believe in that kind of stuff. Yeah, these people know things that our government doesn't want out there. So, there could have been kidnapped by foreign governments for the knowledge. Or
It
they
could
could
also be companies. It could also be corporations. It might not even be the government. It might just be private corporations or companies that are doing this.
very well could be. They want the knowledge that they have to work on some kind of tech. It's a mystery, and it's sad that these families and stuff have to suffer for the loss of their loved ones and have no clue on even where to begin to look. And I mentioned in the chat, I mean, I know you probably don't know much about the Nancy Guthrie story, the Savannah Guthrie's mother who was kidnapped.
I don't. No.
That happened right around the time the files were released too. And she was an 80-something-year-old woman who had heart problems, had a pacemaker, and needed medication, and she's still missing, and the story's gone silent. It's just kind of suspect. I don't know.
I have a couple of friends that have messaged me about that and asked me if I was going to do a show on it, and it just hasn't resonated with me, or I haven't come across enough to find material for a show from my vantage point. But from what I've heard, it does sound very suspicious. But any kind of story like that, people get abducted all the time. People go missing all the time. And those stories are not always in the news, and they're not always promoted as like a big thing. When stories like that end up on Netflix, or they end up on the nightly news for 3 or 4 news cycles, that's what makes me suspicious. Is it just by chance, and I would be suspicious either way, or is there a specific reason why this particular story is being pushed so hard? That's the way that I think about it personally.
And these people have mental breakdowns that we have no idea that could have occurred for all of the information that they did carry, and just lost it and just took off. You don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, especially with the one woman at Los Alamos that, whether it's financial trouble or something else, maybe she was aware that something could potentially happen to her family. Maybe she might not have even been threatened. She might have just taken off as a result of that. The fact that she was found walking down the side of the road and didn't take her car and just disappeared that way, that's, I think, indicative of maybe making an agreement to not let your family get harmed, and you'll go along with it and leave your car where it is and walk to this location. And that's what, when I first read that, that's what made me think that this was more than just kind of classical people get abducted by random people and there's no connections between it all. But the FBI thinks that there is connections, and that, then you go to the next layer, and it's like all the people online, which I know you're aware of, Amber, all the conspiracy folks, they want to connect it to UFOs, which maybe it is. I'll tell you what, Amber, I would be shocked I'm wondering what if any officials or scientists from Stavati Aerospace have been kidnapped? Because that's where the real science is.
Right. Yeah, he's got all that all that technology and everything. Allegedly, now Wilcock, when I was on his stream this last week, it's allegedly now he's got, he did all of these great things and created all of this, stuff. It's all allegedly now. He's like backtracking, and apparently Beskar posted something on his X account on a comment, which totally is a big blunder because of that lawsuit that they have against them with Stavati, with that Dimitrov guy, because it states in the court papers that they have no working aircraft. They have not built anything. And now all of a sudden, in this comment, he was saying how they have built this stuff, and you could put orders in for stuff, and it's just ridiculous. So
I don't know about you, but I picked up some rocket launchers for the Black Friday sale. Did you pick up anything on that discounted day?
I hope they don't blow up on you.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Stavati made them. They're going to be high quality. For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, this is I'm showing this on the screen. This is the CEO of Stavati Aerospace, Christopher R. Beskar, who appears to be, I mean, he looks like an
He re-
unemployed clown.
he reminds me of the villains from like the silent movie era. You just put a
A,
top.
a little bit, yeah, a little bit.
That's what he reminds me of. One of those old villains from like the silent movie era. If you put a top hat on them, just evil like.
Yeah, he's even got like I feel like he's got a little bit of a what's that character from Mario? A Waluigi. A little bit of a Waluigi look to him. You can see that on
Yeah.
the screen. A little bit.
Do you remember the movie The Wild Wild West with Will Smith and then the guy who played the villain guy with the big spider?
Yeah, yes, yes.
That's what he reminds me of too. That the villain guy in that movie.
Well, he looks trustworthy enough to give a million.5.
Yeah.
I'll invest in Savati. But that's where that's I'll not be surprised if Wilcock and these guys don't pick these stories up and say that it's connected to Stavati or something like that. Maybe one of their people went missing. Something. I'm going to make that predict. The Archangel Gabriel told me that this was going to happen, Amber. So.
Well, David always says every week his life's in danger. So.
Imagine our lives are in danger talking about this tonight too. So we hope that you stay safe down there in Florida.
Thank you. I live. Do you know where Pensacola, Florida is?
Yeah. Jordan Maxwell's actually from there. Yep.
Okay, so I'm like an hour east of there. I'm like right on the Gulf. I'm like between Pensacola and Destin.
Oh, okay. You would probably be like a 2.5, 3 hour drive from where I grew up. I grew up in St. Pete Beach,
Yeah. So,
Tampa area.
So that's the area of Florida I live in. So.
Well, enjoy Florida and enjoy those Wilcox streams and the new book that's coming.
I'm off this weekend, so tomorrow when I get up, I'm going to dive into it. I've already read a little bit of the beginning, so yeah, it's just been working. I've been tired, so I'm planning this weekend to bury my face into it and just get into it. I'm so excited. And you did an excellent job. The research and everything that you did putting that together is just phenomenal.
I appreciate that, Amber. Thank you. Enjoy the book. Stay safe. Get some sleep, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, that went very well, taking some calls in the Secret Teachings for the first time in several years. We will do it again Friday nights. And if anybody has a comment that they didn't get on the show tonight, email me, rdgable@yahoo.com. tstradio.info is the website. Quickly, I'll remind you that you can, in the links below, if you're on the audio archive or if you're watching the show, go ahead and click on the links for the what's it called? Buy me a coffee. I think it's buy me a tea or buy me a book. You can do that to support the show. You can support us through Cash App if you would like to make a donation. We don't take money through YouTube because they take 30% of it. But I don't know why you would make a donation when you could just buy a book and get something, out of it, or you could subscribe to the show. But those are the options: Cash App and buy me a coffee, and buying a book and subscribing. Otherwise, listen to the free archive, get those advertisements playing because they support the show. If you don't like them, that's where the subscription comes in. I want to thank all of the callers tonight for calling into the show, being brave enough to call in and voice their opinions on the air. Not because it's dangerous, but just because it's, you listen to a show for so long, or you listen to a person like me for so long, and it's maybe a little bit weird to call in. Maybe you're a little bit nervous. I mean, I get that. Even people I know personally, I'm like, I'm a little bit nervous to call into one show or another. Even if I know the host, it's just, especially for me, it's like I'm on air. This is my thing. But when I call into somebody else's show, I have to adapt to that climate. And then as a listener, I can't speak to that because I'm not a listener of many shows, but I imagine that's a little bit nerve wracking. So thank you for calling in for the first time for the first or second time. I don't know how many times you called into radio, but I think Amber might have been one of the first times. Thank you for calling into the show tonight. tstradio.info, rdgable at yahoo.com. We're done. That's the show tonight. I don't know the answer to these questions, but there is definitely something very, very suspicious happening. And when we learn more, we will go back to this story. Hope that you have a great weekend. The music that you are hearing is from White Bat Audio on YouTube. Stay safe, stay informed, stay healthy, and as always, I will talk to you on the next broadcast. As I play the music and go out, if you're watching the video and the video only, I will put up the rest of your comments as they come in. You can watch the screen there. Have a great night. I'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend.